You just have to have an idea. And the idea has to be in a format that shows off how the character functions. You know, Rockford was always broke and living in a trailer and that. So you develop a character for him, and you've got Jim Garner, which always helps because he's got great charm. Columbo, which was created by Levinson and Link, you know, basically they took that from Crime and Punishment. That's the basic format for that show. And Columbo initially, NBC wanted to cast Bing Crosby to play Columbo. I'm sure you've heard this mythology before. Fortunately, Levinson and Link held out and got Peter Falk. Peter would not sign a series deal at that time because he thought he was going to become a movie star. He'd gotten an Academy Award nomination for Murder Incorporated. He was appearing in pictures. He wasn't starring in them per se, except for maybe like The In-Laws, where he'd share it with Alan Arkin. But he wouldn't make a series deal. So they made 1 2-hour movie in, what was it, 66, I believe it was, which had been a play. The character Columbo has been around for a very long time. It was initially a play that they wrote, which never got to Broadway. A character actor named Thomas Mitchell played Columbo, and Joseph Cotton and his wife were the heavies of the piece. And they shot it, you know, as a film, and people liked it, but it couldn't go anywhere because Peter did it. When it came time to do the Wheel initially, which Columbo was to be a major part of, Levinson and Link had, in some effect, given away a certain amount of their rights, which could be expressed financially, when they got the first TV movie made, because it was at the beginning of making television movies. So they didn't have a lot of leverage at that time, and they were new in town. So they got mad at the studio and said, well, we're not going to write the pilot, and they recommended me to come in. And I found out there was no royalty, and I turned it down. Then they brought in a writer named Stanford Whitmore. He found out there was no royalty, and he turned it down. And Sid Sheinberg, who ran the studio at the time, put Whitmore on suspension and called me back. And I went at that time, and they found a way to express the money in a different fashion. And then I wrote the pilot, and the pilot was obviously a success. Levinson and Link wanted to come back now to do the first year of the series and asked me to step aside and do McCloud for a year and then come back and take over the show, which I thought was really the smart thing to do because these guys knew mysteries. I hadn't really done much in the way of mysteries except for the Columbo pilot and then, you know, much later doing shows with Fred Silverman. So I thought that was the shrewd thing for them to do, and then I could kind of watch what they were doing. And then I took over the show and I ran the show. My friend Roland Kibbe came in with me for 3 years as sort of caretakers.